The NPA's Asset Forfeiture Unit and the Investigating Directorate have seized assets belonging to several people implicated in the multi-million-rand blue lights tender. 75 million rand worth of property was seized in Sandton, Boksburg, Pretoria, Springs and Sasolburg. Some of the property belongs to former SAPS bosses, including former National Police Commissioner Khomotso Phahlane. For more on this story, I'm joined by Investigating Directorate spokesperson Sindisiwe Seboka. Thank you so much for your time. Can you tell us whether these assets have been seized because they have been found conclusively to be part of this investigation linked to the monies lost during that blue lights tender, or simply because an investigation is ongoing?
It's actually the in-between response. So basically, this is a provisional restraint order according to Chapter 5 of POCO, the Prevention of Organized Crimes Act, which essentially means that it's premised on the criminal case that's back in court on the 2nd of November. So should we be successful and these persons be convicted, then it would mean that the Asset Forfeiture Unit would then move for the confiscation of these particular assets and essentially get them sold. So currently, those assets have been, or rather, a curator has been appointed to basically safekeep these assets so that they're not dissipated in the interim while we await the conclusion of the criminal case.
Is this kind of case very difficult to prove?
So corruption matters, fraud matters, are quite lengthy matters, not necessarily difficult. However, they are lengthy matters, so you need to be invested for the long haul in order to see a prosecution play out in court and eventually a successful prosecution. So what we've basically done, working with IPED, who actually brought this particular matter to the NPA's attention, is that we've been working thoroughly to ensure that all the loopholes are actually covered and that the matter proceeds well within court. This year, we have actually proceeded quite well with that particular matter, and it returns to court on the 2nd of November.
Can you tell us exactly how much money was ultimately stolen or misappropriated? We know the entire value of that tender was 191 million rand, but not all of those funds had changed hands yet.
So in this particular contract was 191, like you're saying. However, only 65 million was actually used by or paid off to the service provider Instrumentation for Traffic Law Enforcement, owned by Mr. Vimphi Mantata. So the 65 million, then through the Asset Forfeiture Unit, they then calculate the interest so bad of that particular amount. It brought it to roughly 121 million when we went to court. The court then found in our favor in that amount. However, through finding out what's the actual properties, immovable and removable, that we could get, it went to about 75 million of assets that the curators actually are taking stock of currently.
So is that also the 75 million rands, also the value roughly of the amount believed to have changed hands? Because we know that there was property, goods purchased by the alleged perpetrator here, the person to whom the tender was awarded, Mr. Vimphi Mantata, as well as cash sums handed over to individuals in this situation. Does that roughly equate?
So most definitely, it does roughly equate. So the 65 million that was paid over, then through the accounting that is done by the Asset Forfeiture Unit, looking at the interest, it took it to about just over 121 million. However, with the current tally, we are sitting at about 75 million odd that we're able to find, or equatable assets that we're able to find. So currently, that is the amount that would be safe kept by the curator until the finalization of the criminal case.
Is any of the property or the assets, the goods, the vehicles seized, does any of that belong to Mr. Vimphi Mantata, the owner of the company awarded the tender?
So when the court finds in our favor in terms of the asset forfeiture leg of things, a state-appointed curator or court-appointed curator rather, then takes up stock as to of all these particular individuals, as well as other affected persons like their wives and or other persons so cited. How much of these particular assets can we then acquire? They then go to those various properties, various premises of the people so cited. So yes, there is a specific sum of the assets of the person that benefited from the tender. However, some of the assets are also of the former top police officers, Khomotso Phahlane, a former deputy police commissioner, Bonang Gwenya, a former provincial commissioner, Delanga, and various others have also formed part of this particular parade. So you would say that the curator as well as the sheriffs took part in during today. However, the curator will have a final tally of all the assets so seized, and then it will be submitted within a stipulated time frame to find out of the stuff that we could find, that we assumed we would find, and of the stuff that we actually find, what is outstanding and where is it.
These investigations, as you said at the start of the interview, do take a lot of time. It's a lengthy process involved in the investigation. How close are we to getting to a stage where we could go to court with this?
So we're already in court. I think I needed to just outline that from the beginning. There's a criminal case that's already been in court, hence it's returning to court on the 2nd of November. The asset forfeiture leg under Chapter 5 is reliant on the criminal leg. So the court has already found in our favor to restrain or safekeep these assets provisionally. And then the second leg will be the confirmation of this particular restraint. However, in the interim, while the criminal case is proceeding, we know that we can sleep well at night knowing that these assets won't be sold off, these assets won't be done away with, because they'll be safe kept by a curator. And then when the time comes, when the criminal case is concluded, then we request the court that looking at this particular judgment, we now need these assets to be confiscated and the money to be recouped and placed back into the state fiscus.
Just as an aside, did the company instrumentation for traffic law enforcement, did they fulfill any of the obligations under that tender? Were any of those blue lights actually provided?
So there's a back and forth debate about what exactly transpired, but that is subject to what is actually happening in court currently. So I cannot get into the details of that. However, more money could have possibly been lost had IPED not intervened and had the NPA not intervened and had this matter brought to court. The contract was then stopped there and there, because more money would have been lost, accounting to the 191 million. So proactive approach by IPED that actually assisted in the stopping of the further losing of money by the state.
Excellent. Thank you very much for giving us an update on that situation. Investigating Directorate spokesperson Sindisiwe Seboka speaking to us there.